All right, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you've all had a great day, and I am Callie, and today we are going to be doing plant painting. All the supplies can be found in the comments below, but I can give you a brief overview of what I will be using today. You need any kind of paper. I will be using 2 different sheets of craft paper, one green and one black. This would also work great with just plain white paper or anything you have available. You will also need some paints. I'm using acrylic paint. If you don't want to stain anything and be sure you're not going to wreck anything, I would use tempera paint to make sure it is not going to stain. For this, you want something thicker based, so you can't use watercolor for this, sadly. You're going to need paintbrushes. I also have a cup available just so I can put the brushes I've used away as I go. Another option, if you're just using one brush, is to have water available for you to clean your brush throughout. And then, as I said before, we are using plants to paint today. So you're going to want to grab some plants. I went outside and I just grabbed some leaves that I found on the ground. Want to make sure you ask mom and dad before you do this. I would make sure you're not picking off live plants. I did my best to find ones that were just laying on the ground. It was pretty windy here the other day, so I happened to be lucky. If you can't find any, I'd be just sure to ask mom and dad before you go do that outside. Another optional thing is a paper plate, as you could use this to physically stamp the plants onto your paper. I will be showing you 2 different ways to do that, although I found it is best to use paintbrushes to go directly onto the plants and then press on the paper. But we can get started. I'll show you the first 2 different ways that we can do it. As I said before, one with the paintbrushes, the other with the plate and using it as a stamp. All right, so I have a variety of different plants we can use. Just so I can show you a bunch of different ways, I'm actually going to just pick them off and use the leaves one by one. So the first way that I will show you that I described was taking a little bit of paint and using a paintbrush to paint on it first. Another thing to keep in mind is you want to have your paint to be darker than the paper. I'm using black because I wanted to kind of experiment with some paints I have. I have white that will cover well on black, as well as I have these neon paints that I haven't tried before. So we'll go on the green first, and color that will cover up on green very well looks like this pink color would. So I'm just gonna put a dot onto our paper plate. See if you can see this. I'm just gonna put a little dot. You don't need much for this at all, as you're just painting the back of your leaf. If you're using a bigger leaf, you're going to need more, but as my leaf is only this big, probably only 1 inch wide, we're just going to need this small dot of paint. I also am using a finer tipped brush, that way it will be easier to cover. As you can see, there's also a front of the leaf and back of the leaf. Can't really tell on camera as much, but you can in person. The front of the leaf is what has the most texture, therefore I will be painting directly on that surface. That way when we stamp it onto our paper, it will clearly give the texture of the leaf. Another thing that I'm going to do, just to be sure that I'm not getting paint everywhere, is I'm going to be placing the leaf down on a paper towel. You could also do this on the paper plate that you have, just to make sure that you aren't getting paint on your table. Hopefully you can see this best. I will kind of pull it forward a little bit so you can see. Just like that. I'm just going to place it right on the paper towel, paint directly over the top of it. Something else to keep in mind, which I'm kind of experimenting right now to see. I got some of these leaves just a couple of minutes ago outside, and I got a couple of them last night, and I kind of dried them out before, so I will let you know how that works, if it works better with ones that have been dried out a little bit or if it works with ones that are fresh. All right, but so I'm just gonna take my paint and my paintbrush and I'm gonna paint directly over our leaf. I'm gonna leave the end of it open so I can carry it and not get paint on my hands. All right. Again, once I am done doing this, done painting the leaf, I will hold it up so you can see what it looks like. You want to do this semi-fast as you don't want the paint to dry on your leaf. You also want to make sure you don't have too thin of a coat on your leaf as you want it to be able to transfer onto the paper. So as you can see, just painting over it, try to make sure that it's an equal layer all the way through. And so this is what it looks like. We left our other side unpainted and our one side is painted. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take our green sheet of paper and I'm going to press directly down. So face down with the leaf, just like that, as you can see. And you want to use something to press it down. I'm just going to use my fingers. If it works better for you, you could always use a cup and press down. You could use anything with a hard surface. You just want to make sure that you won't be moving it. Also, the tip of this leaf is very small and I'm having trouble pressing it down with my fingers as I don't want to get paint on myself. So I'm going to press down with the edge of my paintbrush just to make sure it's all the way down. I'm gonna go back through one more time, push with my fingers really good. It's just like if you'd be using a stamp at home, just as you would ink down and then ink onto your paper. You want to make sure you are applying equal pressure with the leaf and the paint. All right, so now it is fully down and I will peel it off for you so you can see. All right, so there's your leaf. If you look really closely, you can see the texture in it, and that's what I was talking about as we use the front of our leaf instead of the back, so you can find that texture. I will set that leaf to the side, and then we will move on to the next. I will show you the second option that I talked about before, which would be putting some paint on your plate. Then you take the leaf and you stamp it on your plate, take that off and stamp it directly onto your paper. So that is the second option, which you don't have to do, but you always can. I'm going to be choosing a different color again. Blue will cover nicely on the screen, so that's what I'm going to use right now. I can just show you the difference between what it is like to paint the back and to physically stamp it into your plate on the paint and stamp it onto your paper. So for this, you don't need that much, a little bit more than last time, as you're going to actually need to move it around first on the plate, and then you're going to need to use it. So as I said before, I'm going to be using different paintbrushes, so I'm just going to drop that one away. If you only have a couple paintbrushes available, I would suggest just getting a bucket of water, and that way you can clean them off between everything. All right, so here you have your blue. You're gonna wanna spread it out evenly on your plate, about as large as your leaf to be. So I'm gonna actually use the same leaf off of the branch that I used, not the same exact one, but this off the same branch. So a similar size so you guys can see the difference in what I'm doing. So you want it to be enough to cover the surface of the leaf. So again, this is the leaf I'm using. Just gonna rip that off. Then we have my paint. We wanna make sure, looks like I should make it a little bit bigger. So we'll just make this square a little bit bigger. If you are using bigger leaves, I would suggest that you do the paintbrush option. But if this seems to work better for you, you can always do this. So now, as you can see, I have made our square of paint here. Again, use the front of the leaf, not the back of the leaf. The front of the leaf is always a little darker. You can't seem to tell that much difference on camera, but you can in person. Then you're going to want to lay it right down onto your paint and push. Again, so I don't get my fingers messy, I'm going to push down with the back of my paintbrush all the way down. You want all the little corners to go down. You want that whole surface full of paint. So this is a double the process. Now you want to lift this up first. Now it has blue paint on the back, and then you can go directly onto your paper. Just like that, and then we're going to push. I'm going to use my finger. Again, if you want to use a cup, you can do that as well. To get the corners down again, I'm going to use the back of my paintbrush and push all the little edges down. So now when I lift up this one, you can visually see the difference it makes between the plate process and the brush process. So stuck on there now. We're just going to take it off. Just like that. So as you can see, it definitely leaves a different print. Although for both of them, you can definitely see the texture. I personally think this one is easier as it works better with larger leaves, but either one works. Another option for this is you could do some stems and then paint on there, or you could do a tree branch and then stamp on there. I'm gonna use the same leaf we just went with, and I will create a flower for you guys. That way you can see what I'm talking about. We'll just go right off the two that we already have down. So again, I'm gonna place this on here. Another option is you don't have to make it look like a plant. You could always just do it however you want. Arrange them in any order. So I pressed it down again, and I will lift this right up. And I'm gonna put it in a flower formation. So I'm gonna put it over here. Press, press, press again. It's the same process, same repetitive process. Once you get it down, it's pretty simple to understand. And peel, and that's what you get. So I'm gonna go back with our pink one that we used before, so I can finish off this flower for you guys, and that way you can see what it will look like. As I did before, I am going to paint right on the top of the leaf. Don't need too much paint, but you want to make sure you have enough to cover the surface. And then you're going to want to place this down. Press, press, press. As you can see, and we'll pull it right up, and it will leave that mark again. So as you can see the difference that time, I didn't use as much paint as I did this time, but that's what makes it unique. We will go back one more time with our blue just so we can finish off the flower. So I will push this into our blue again. I'm gonna use the back of this just to push it down. Once it's pressed, you just want to lift up. As you can see, there's paint in the back, and we'll take this and we'll finish out the flower formation. So you just want to press it down. I'm going to use my finger for the majority of it, and then I'm going to use the back of this to press down. And then we will peel right up. As you can see, I made a flower formation in that. You could also then take it and draw a little circle in the middle. And now you have a flower. That's an option. You can also take some excess paint that you have somewhere else, or you could use a different color, but that way you could give it a stem. And now there's a stem on the flower. Then you just take that squiggly line and you work it down. And then I will move on and show you some different options for some leaves and different things that we can plant with. So on this sheet of paper, I showed you the 2 different ways that you can execute this. The first being with a paintbrush directly onto your plant, the second being on the paper plate. I prefer just painting directly onto the plant, so that is what I'm going to be doing for the remainder of the video. And I'm going to be putting the leaves in no certain order. I'm just going to kind of abstract it, put them anywhere I want it. And as I said before, on the black page, as it is dark, I'm going to be using brighter colors as I have them available to me. I haven't used them yet before, so we'll see how it goes, but they're neon. And then I will also be using white as it's a good contrast on the black. So I will show you some other leaves that I have available to me, and we can work on from there. So as you can see, I have a longer, skinnier leaf, and we will just do the same process as we did before. I'm going to take my paper towel, lay the leaf down, and then I will pick the color I'm going to choose. For this one, I will choose orange. So this neon orange, and we'll see how that works. Again, we'll just put a tiny little dot on our plate. As you can see, that's very bright. Hopefully we can cover some black up with it, and it will be a good contrast. But so I'm going to take another brush. As this leaf is a little larger, I am going to take a little bit of a larger brush to it. So you're just going to want to dip in your paint again, and then go apply it directly to the front of your leaf. Just a reminder, the front of your leaf is always going to be the darker portion of your leaf. If you want to compare the front and back, it is also up to you. If you want to use the back of your leaf, that's great. I prefer using the front of the leaf as it gives that more textured look on the piece of paper. I'm just going to continue to go through with this. Just kind of run it all the way through, make sure I have an equal coat on my leaf. Another thing that I couldn't find any of, but would work great for this as well, would be pine cones or acorns. And you could actually paint directly on that and roll it onto your paper. But anything outside works for this. Alright, so as you can see, it is painted orange. Again, I'm not going to be doing this in any order. I'm just going to be laying them down. I laid down the center of my paper. You can do this any way you want. Just like any other project, you want to make it unique. You can do this any way you want. Just like I had last time, I'm going to take the edge of our paintbrush on the bottom, and I'm just going to work my way around and make sure that everything is stuck down. So I press in the middle with my fingers, and then I press down on the edges with the edge of my brush. Alright, so now that I can see that everything is down, I will peel up, and we will see if it covered well. Alright, there you go. So it looks like this color did color well enough. And we will set this leaf to the side, and I will show you how that turned out. So as you can see all the little textures in it. Doesn't have to be perfect. As you can tell, it's going to come out a little bumpy sometimes as there's a lot of texture on the front of those plants. but I will continue working with some neon paints on the front of this, and then we'll show you our results. Again, I'm going to be taking the paper towel. Here I have this really long one, and we'll be using that. The color that I'll go back through with now is I'll use some white. So just as we had before, as a repetitive process, you just want to take your plate, a drop of white there. I did put a little more this time, as our leaf is very, very big this time. I'll be taking another brush, as I'm not mixing brushes. If you are, just be sure to wash them off in between. That way you're not mixing colors. Again, we're just going to dab into the white paint and paint directly onto our leaf. This one is a little bit more challenging. I don't know if you can see, but it's kind of curling in on itself, which makes it a little hard for me to get all the paint down, but we'll work with it. I'll try to open it up as I go. We'll see. I'm gonna continue to grab more white paint as I go. I said this in the beginning, but you do kind of want to make sure this is a quicker process, as you don't want the paint to be drying on your leaf, because if the paint dries on your leaf, then it won't be able to stamp down as efficiently as it would if it is more wet on the leaf. So for this one, I'm actually not going to bring the paint down to the bottom, as I want something to carry onto as I put it on our paper. So if you can see that, I didn't go all the way down to the bottom with our white paint. But then we will take our black piece of paper. Again, I'm not going to go in any order. I think I'm even going to cross over this orange one. And then you're going to want to press. So as I told you before, this one is kind of more challenging because it's bending up. It might be easier to do this if you can find a plant that is flatter, as our two previous ones were before. So I'm going to press, press, press all the way down. Just going to run my finger all the way down the plant and just press. And I'm not too worried about the white covering the black. But as you can see, there we go. All right, we'll do a couple more. That way I can show you some different colors on this paper. Okay, so next we will do our neon pink. Just as the same process as before. You're gonna take your paper plate, and you want to just give a little dot on there. Take a different paintbrush. And then we will do the same process over again. So this is actually one of the leaves that I just got a few minutes before I started this video. I told you at the beginning that I would let you know if I find that it works better to dry them out the night before, or if these from directly outside will work just as well. So as you can see, again, I'm just repeating that same process of putting down all the paint onto our leaf over this paper towel so I don't get my hands messy. Looks like I didn't put down enough paint, so I'm just gonna put a little dot right onto the leaf actually. Put our cap back on. I want to make sure the whole leaf is entirely covered. And we'll see if this leaf makes any different marks, considering I just got it prior to starting this video versus letting it kind of dry out overnight. This leaf is a little bit more wet as it has been raining where I live, but it will be interesting to see the differences that it makes. All right, so as you can see, it is fully painted pink. I'm gonna move this out of the way first before I press down. And then I'm just gonna place it right at the top. No specific order again. We're gonna wanna push all these sides down. All right, let's see. This one side isn't flattening out very well. I'm just gonna take our paintbrush and do our best. So I think I personally have come to the conclusion using the drier leaves is probably the better option. This wet one just isn't wanting to sit the way I wanted it to, whereas with the ones that I let dry overnight, they definitely were more manageable when it came to me putting them down. All right, again, same process. We will lift it up. Looks like it left that same good textured pattern. There you go. And we'll do one more. I'll show you one more color on top of this black paper. Again, you're gonna wanna repeat the same process we've been doing. I'm gonna be using this yellow. Again, we'll just put a dot down on the paper, and I'm gonna actually try out a different type of leaf to see how that will actually work. I don't know how it will exactly. I'll show you what I mean. Set this to the side quick as we put our paper towel down. So I will be doing this kind of thorny branch, which will be interesting to see how we can lay that out. I'm just gonna do my best. I'm gonna take a new paintbrush as I'm using a different color. And I think I'm just going to pick a side, lay it down, and paint directly on top of it as best as I can. So we'll take our yellow paint and just brush over the whole thing. So I don't know if you can tell, but it's definitely different going on to this sort of branch as it was the leaves, as it is not a flat surface. I'm going to take a little bit more paint and go on top of it as I want to make sure that it is fully covered. I didn't do the stem of this branch either, but the more plants that you have to work with, the more variety of painting you will have, as they all provide different textures and different surfaces. All right, so now that we have it fully painted, kind of flattened it out a little bit. As you can see, you can kind of tell a difference on this one. You can't so much because it's yellow on top of green. But we'll go back and we'll take this. I'm going to place it down in this corner over here. And actually, because paint is flying through on the other side, I'm just going to take the paper towel and I'm going to stamp it down on it. So I fully covered our leaf on this one, and I'm just going to press really hard. This you're going to want to do like if you were stamping an actual stamp. Make sure it's even, make sure the leaf isn't moving around too much, and then peel it up. So as you can see, it's stuck down here, and we will peel it up together. And there you go. So that made a really cool stamp. As you can tell, you can really see the texture in all of them. They all make a very unique stamp, as they all are different. But again, you can do this in any order. As the beginning of the video, I showed the 2 different ways you can do this. You can paint directly onto the leaf, or you can paint directly onto a surface such as a paper plate and then stamp down your leaf there and then onto your plate. You could do it organized like this. I made a flower pattern and then created a little flower out of that. You could also do a tree branch and do leaves all over the place. And the final option would just to kind of be abstract with it, put them wherever you want and make it your own. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope that you learned a little bit from it. If you end up doing this plant painting, I would love for you to drop a picture in the comments below. I'd love to see you guys' creations, and I will see you on Wednesday morning with another craft. Thank you. Have a good day.